I am not a planner. If you're familiar with the Myers-Briggs test, I fall squarely into the category of perceiver. This means I tend to defer making a decision to the last moment, or even better, let the decision play out for themselves. I brought a prop. This is a little device I crafted for the singular purpose of not having to decide where I hang something. If I run out of hooks, you could just kind of create two more hooks by putting it together like that. If you're done with the stuff on this hook, you just unhook it and put it in the back of the closet. So that's sort of a, you can set that aside for now, or you give it to my wife. Sitting down to think of this non-linear approach to the world, say for a chapel talk or something, it's surprising to think of how many ways the seat-of-my-pants attitude has crept into my life. Exercise, for instance. I taught at Westminster for 9 years, and about the only thing I remember about that place was the pool. I used to swim every day. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I could swim every day. I had to divorce myself, eventually, from the twin taskmasters of time and distance, those quantifiable determinants of progress. Now, when I kayak, and I kayak when I can, it's as much about the sitting and thinking as the exertion. If rough winds do mar the darling buds of May, I get a better workout. If you go headlong into the wind at first, you could drift back. Sometimes I sip tea. This past Monday, I got a late start and found myself past twilight in the darkness of Lake Kachikowik. Time and distance, water and land merged. Wisps of clouds and warm starlight mirrored in the placid, gently undulating lake. And the warm silence echoed the distant sound of a train horn and the more near calls of waterfowl. Exquisite. It rounds me out. It calms me, and it gives me perspective on the world. Last summer, I spent 2 weeks in Colorado writing. Each day, I'd pack up my hammock and some refreshments and walk until I found a cool place to hang. Hanging again. How can you know which tree to attach to until you know? Taking that notion of a goal out of the equation allows for a blessing of serendipity and discovery. Have any of you had a chance to hang in the hammocks by the lake? A few of you? If you haven't, try. They're wonderful. Lately, I'm intrigued by how setting one hammock up helps us understand how to set the next hammock up. You determine how to do it based on how the trees work in a gentle dance of circumstance and desire. Habits are a variation on going planless. If I eat a salad every day for lunch or exercise every day, I'm not planning on doing these things. I'm just doing them. It's like fighting fire with fire. Willpower, the act of deciding to do or not to do something, exists like a bottle of water. If you use your willpower early up in the day, you won't have much left in the evening. It's a muscle that you can strengthen, but it still gets tired. Decide not to eat that cake for lunch, and you have a little less ability to put the extra hour in of studying in lieu of an hour of YouTube. Habits are like the Iron Man suit of willpower. You don't make a choice. You just do it or don't. Traveling's an interesting case. You have to make plans, don't you? I'm unconvinced. When I was 23, I gave that theory a try and stuck my thumb out from outside the little village in the Czech Republic, Třemošná, where I was teaching English. I was hoping to get to Munich, but I ended up traveling through Austria and Italy, camping in the woods above the Cinque Terre on the shores of Lake Como and Garda. That's just not to say I didn't have some close calls and a few harrowing adventures along the way. On hindsight, I should have been more wary when climbing into the back of that pickup truck full of migrant workers when someone asked me, "So no one really knows where you are, right?" And I did arrive in Rome at midnight with no place to stay. But here I am, telling the story with a sigh, some more ages and ages hence. In other words, I'm fairly vested in my belief that not planning works out for the best. Maybe if I were a judger, I would have thought about things differently. Judgers, the Myers-Briggs opposite of perceivers, like to follow timelines. They make decisions easily and like plans. My wife is a judger. Her favorite story is the time she and her boyfriend made plans to go to New Zealand on vacation. She had her hostels lined up and even a spot reserved on a Swimming with Dolphins tour in Paihia, a small town on the North Island of New Zealand. So when she broke up with said boyfriend, there wasn't a doubt in her mind that she'd follow through with that trip. I do love that quality in her. The thing is, her plans got screwed up anyway by this other guy. This other guy, had actually been planning to go to Europe that summer on a standby ticket and had miscalculated in his typical fashion. You can't go to standby to Europe in June, and if you did, you'd never get home. If he had done any planning, or maybe even bought a ticket like a normal human being, he'd have circumvented this. Anyway, this slacker decides to go to New Zealand. Instead, because it's moving towards winter down under, and no one besides maybe Japanese skiers or English backpackers want to go to New Zealand in the winter. The reason he went to Paihia was because it was up north, and he figured it would be the warmest part of the country. The reason he was on the same Swimming with Dolphins tour might have been because he had spotted the girl with the beautiful hair and high cheekbones on the bus the night before, and had joined that tour to meet her. But that would have meant planning. The truth is, it was the most serendipitous coincidence of my life. We were married a year later and honeymooned in Thailand for 3 weeks without a single plan. When I told my daughter what my talk would be about, she gave me one of her quizzical smiles, held my eyes for a moment, and then asked with the slightest bit of concern, "But you planned your speech, right?" Hamlet, procrastinator extraordinaire, said that there is divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them as we will. If that's true, we'll end up where we've meant to be, however we try to skew the odds. A more conventional way of saying that is that if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, who we heard from earlier, and Epictetus, believe because we have little control over anything external, we need to accept circumstance, the good, the bad, and the ugly, with equal equanimity. I like that idea. What if we could free ourselves from being offended? If something bothers us, a Stoic would say, it's something in ourselves that's the cause. We choose how we respond, whether we realize it or not. We fall into habits of negativity. We establish habits of optimism. As I said, I'm married to a planner. She's my best friend, the love of my life, and she's fond of reminding me how my success as a non-planner depends heavily on her doing some worrying. She says worrying. I call her my worrier. The truth is, we need each other. I need her to be her so I can be me, and vice versa. And we intrinsically recognize that quality in the other. We play off each other like two trees with a hammock between them, like the water and the sky at night. And when we went to China a few years ago with our kids, I even planned a few days of that trip. Perceivers are often thought of as procrastinators. I grew up assuming I was lazy because I put off making decisions. Planners are said to be uptight and rigid. Relax, they're told. But of course, we need both types of thinking. And anyways, we're humans and not caricatures. We're all some combination of the two. Schools favor judgers, or at least early on. So the perceivers in life often go through school feeling vaguely inadequate. On the other hand, life is so erratic that without figuring out how to roll with things a bit, a person could spend a lot of time stressed out. or unbalanced. I asked Ollie to do the reading. He did for several reasons. First of all, I like hearing him read Shakespeare. He's got a great voice, doesn't he? Second, the reading I'd initially hoped to do, Mr. Smith did on Monday. Third, I wanted to pay some homage to the seniors, and a little bit more on that later. But the more salient point is that it's okay to question ourselves, because we're always evolving. At each age, we're buffeted by different forces, and learning to find our own balance means constantly adapting to each age's new challenges. As a schoolboy, as a soldier, as an old judge trying to tell people something wise. Each of those things are all going to be unique to ourselves, and that ambiguity excites me. Over the years, I've developed elaborate mechanisms, coping mechanisms, to allow the spontaneous into my life. I found a vocation that's an avocation that allows me every day to listen and respond, to change direction, to indulge in tangents. As a teacher, I use flexible deadlines and checklists to tease my procrastinators. Right, Hugo? To tease my procrastinators into healthy habits, to find I try to use a healthy balance of product and process. I try to teach how to think instead of what to think. Personally, I've cultivated healthy habits that embrace the ambiguity of life, but with an eye towards the future. I've learned to give myself time to let ideas percolate, and to have faith that the chapel talk will eventually get written. I bring my phone out on my kayaks, and when I'm sitting in a hammock watching the sunset, when I have an idea, I write it down. Last year, my mother-in-law gave us a pool table. Where's that? Thanks, Jackie. Each day I challenge my children to a game. I'm acutely aware that this time with them, winning some, losing most, is fleeting. But the preciousness of it stems from the very indulgence of it. I can't take a picture. I need to live it. My pool table, my family, the woods, the lake, these are what I have now. Let us then embrace ourselves, our demons and our angels, for each of them serve us in turn. Let us learn from each other and trust that we are all born with strengths and weaknesses, and the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Attach your hooks where you will, make elaborate schedules, or don't. Stick your thumb out, or buy a ticket. Neither is right or wrong. Hang your hammock at an angle that suits you and affords you the view that best serves you at the time. As for me, I think I'm going to just let the mystery be.
And now, meine Damen und Herren, Mesdames et Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, the Kicker Club is so happy to welcome back an old friend. I give you the toast